When I was ordained, about 6 months after it, I was sent to St. Bridget's in Cardiff, and I was sent, as on the normal days, to go and hear confessions. It was my turn. And I went in and I sat down, and this man came in, like this, wouldn't look at me. And he started off. He knew the ritual. Bless me, Father, for I have sinned. It's 45 years since my last confession. And then he looked up. Having got that worst bit out, he looked up and he looked at me. I was 31. And it was obvious to him that I was 31. And we started to laugh. And I said, well, you haven't been to confession since I was born. It's a long time. Hope. He left forgiven, not by me, but by Christ. He left forgiven because we are a people not solely of the past. Yes, we look to it, we remember it, we celebrate it. But we are, by our very nature, a people that goes forward, a people for today, tomorrow, but more importantly, forever. When it comes to eating or drinking, just even ordinary food, you don't eat because you were hungry 3 days ago. You eat because you're hungry now, and because you want to stave off hunger for the future, for the next couple of hours or whatever it is. Hope, in the way that the church understands it, is about giving us tomorrow and eternity. Hope is about our future. We celebrate a Jubilee year of hope. Is there anything new about that? No, nothing whatsoever. The church has celebrated Jubilee years since its existence. There's an old sort of thing that if you move a house, when you've moved into your new house and you've labelled all your boxes, put them in the attic. Whatever you don't want, put it in the attic. And after 6 months, if you haven't opened it, you don't need it, throw it away. But when it comes to the church, when it comes to our faith is not about throwing away, but our faith is about going back and looking at that box and remembering the good things that God has given us. And in that remembering, when we look at the faults and the failings of many people, you only have to open the Old Testament. You only have to read the Gospels to find fault with people. Find their faults. They're publicly there very often. But you always find God's love for them, God's forgiveness for them, our future, our hope. As a deanery, you have begun something new. You've begun looking at a future. And I remember having an argument with Archbishop Peter. And I was probably an obnoxious little curate at the time. But he was talking one day in Cardiff about, look, we have to be realistic and we have to talk about closing this one and closing that one and getting rid of this one. And I thought, well, hang on a second, I'm just starting off on my priestly ministry and you're talking about closing shop, and I wasn't having it. No, we can't. We are a people of the future. And it's important that we recognise that. Now, do you know he's got 10 kids? At least 10 kids. I'm one of them. Okay? He's not my real father. Don't worry. Child Support Agency wouldn't be happy. But when it comes to the diocese, the Archdiocese of Cardiff, we had St. Paul's. And St. Paul's was a house in Dowlis. And what it did was very unique and very unusual. It began that formation of priests for the diocese. And there were more than 10 students went to it. They weren't all ordained. But those that were, I was the only foreigner. You can tell by the accent, I'm not from Merthyr, can't you? But all Welsh men ordained for the church in Wales. A great sign of hope. And most of them are still here. Most of them are still working. And it's important that we recognize that. It's important that we recognize that we are a people of hope. We have got a future. It's easy to get, sort of downcast and fed up. If you were Queen Esther, as we have in our first reading this evening, you would be sort of downhearted. She faced death. She faced the death not only of herself but of her people and those that she loved. And what does she do? She goes to God. The only refuge she has left, she goes to God and asks for his help. God is the one who comes to us. He's the one who reminds us that hope is not just something that we sort of stick out our hand and maybe yes, maybe no. Hope for us is walking in that light of Christ, because faith is about walking in the light, not walking in the dark. We talk about recently, about the synod. The synod, very often, I have to admit, not my favourite topic, But there is one thing it reminds us, that the people of God have a voice. The people of God have always had a voice. May not always have been listened to properly, in particular by the clergy, but the voice has always been there. And it's important that we recognise that voice. When his kiddywinks stood before the bishop, the people had a voice. They were the last voice before the priest or the deacon was ordained. And the bishop asked them, do you find this person worthy? Do you accept them for ministry in the church? And the people's response was, yes, we do. When it comes to us, the greatest voice that we have, the most important voice that we have, is just one word. Amen. I believe. I accept what Christ has asked of me. And so as we come together this evening, as you come as the Deanery of Julius and Aaron, great martyrs of the faith, men who gave their lives, they ask you, the church asks you, Christ asks you. And perhaps you should ask yourself, as I should ask myself, when I pray that prayer, thy will be done, do I mean it? Or is it just words? And I think if we're being honest, we do mean it. We have difficulty fulfilling it, but we mean it. So as we celebrate this first week of Lent, you may have fallen already. Get up again. Hope is for your tomorrows and your eternities, and is what Christ offers you.